He's 38. His life is perfectly organized, and he has zero tolerance for surprises. She's 32. Her creativity spills into every corner, and she has a talent for turning any space, including his calm, into chaos. The thing is, sometimes the right kind of mess reveals exactly what we're most desperate to hide. Harper Morgan had imagined her 32nd birthday would be memorable. She just hadn't anticipated it would be memorable for all the wrong reasons. The restaurant was perfect. Candlelit ambiance, soft jazz playing in the background, and all her favorite people gathered around the long table her boyfriend Marcus had reserved. He'd been so insistent about organizing everything himself, which had touched her heart. After 3 years together, she'd thought this might finally be the night he'd propose. How spectacularly wrong she'd been. "Speech! Speech!" her best friend Olivia called out, tapping her wine glass with a fork. The sound made Harper's elderly bulldog Winston, who sat under the table in his licensed service vest, grunt disapprovingly. He'd never liked crowds. Marcus stood, flashing that charming smile that had first caught Harper's attention at an art gallery opening. "I want to thank you all for coming tonight to celebrate this amazing woman," he began, and Harper felt her cheeks warm. Harper has been an experience. The phrasing was odd, but she smiled anyway. "And speaking of experiences," Marcus continued, his voice taking on a strange edge, "I think it's time for honesty. Real honesty." Harper's stomach dropped. Something in his tone felt off. That's when she saw it. Marcus reaching out his hand, but not toward her. Toward the redhead sitting 3 seats down. Jessica, her yoga instructor, the woman she'd introduced to Marcus 6 months ago. "Jessica and I have been seeing each other for 4 months now," Marcus announced, as if he were sharing news about a promotion. "And we're in love." The restaurant seemed to tilt. Harper heard her mother gasp. Her father half rose from his seat, face reddening. But Harper couldn't move. She could only watch, frozen in horror, as Marcus pulled Jessica to her feet and kissed her. Passionately, publicly, at Harper's own birthday dinner. The kiss seemed to last forever. A grotesque performance of betrayal staged before everyone who mattered to her. If this story is touching your heart, show your support. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends. Every action helps us keep bringing you new stories full of emotion. Winston barked once, sharp and accusatory. "You're doing this now?" Harper finally found her voice, though it came out barely above a whisper. "Here?" Marcus had the audacity to look annoyed at her interruption. "I wanted to be honest. You're always talking about authenticity in your art, Harper. Well, this is authentic." "You absolute," her brother started, but Harper held up a hand. She wouldn't cry. Not here. Not in front of these people. Not after he'd already humiliated her so thoroughly. With shaking hands, Harper picked up her purse and Winston's leash. Her fingers brushed against the small potted cactus sitting on the table, her centerpiece brought from home because it had been a gift from her late father. She grabbed it too, needles pricking her palm. "Harper, wait," her mother called. But Harper was already walking, then running. Through the restaurant, past the pitying stares of strangers, out into the cool night air where she could finally breathe. Winston trotted beside her, his breathing labored but loyal. At 14 years old, he wasn't built for running, but he kept pace with her anyway. That was Winston, grumpy, flatulent, and fiercely devoted. She made it 2 blocks before the tears came. Great, heaving sobs that made her mascara run and her nose turn red. She sank onto a bus stop bench, clutching the cactus pot so hard she barely felt the spine's breaking skin. "I'm too much," she whispered to Winston, who laid his heavy head on her knee. "I'm always too much, too messy, too emotional, too chaotic." Marcus had said it before in small ways. "Do you have to laugh so loud? Can't you organize your art supplies? Why do you always make everything so complicated?" She'd tried to be smaller, quieter, more contained, and still, it hadn't been enough. Her phone buzzed incessantly, texts and calls from family and friends. She ignored them all except one. A text from her mother. "Come home, sweetheart. Please." But Harper couldn't go home. Not to the apartment she'd shared with Marcus, filled with 3 years of memories now poisoned. Not to her childhood home where she'd face pitying looks and endless questions. She needed to disappear, to start over somewhere no one knew her as, that girl whose boyfriend publicly dumped her at her own birthday party. And suddenly she knew exactly where to go: Coastal Haven. The small beach town where she'd spent the first 10 years of her life, before her family moved to the city after her father died. She hadn't been back in over 20 years, but she still remembered the sound of waves, the smell of salt air, the feeling of possibility. Her father's old friend still lived there, Mr. Collins, who sent Christmas cards every year and had stood as a grandfather figure after her dad passed. It was impulsive, possibly stupid. But Harper had never been accused of being too practical. She pulled out her phone, and before she could second-guess herself, booked a one-way ticket on the first bus leaving in the morning. Then she texted Mr. Collins. "Is your guest room still available? I need a fresh start. Harper." The response came within minutes. "Always, dear girl. Come home." Winston snored softly against her leg. Harper looked down at the cactus in her lap. Resilient, prickly, surviving in harsh conditions. Just like she would have to be. "Okay, Dad," she whispered to the night sky. "I'm going back. Help me figure this out." Tomorrow she would pack. Tomorrow she would leave behind every trace of Marcus and the life they'd built. Tomorrow she would become someone new. Or maybe she would finally become herself again. The bus ride to Coastal Haven took 6 hours, during which Winston farted approximately 47 times, much to the disgust of their fellow passengers. Harper had stopped apologizing after the first dozen. If people couldn't handle a gassy elderly bulldog, that was their problem. She'd packed light: one suitcase, her art supplies in a battered messenger bag, Winston in his carrier, and the cactus carefully wrapped in newspaper. Everything else she'd left behind, including her dignity apparently. As the bus pulled into the small coastal town, Harper's breath caught. It was exactly as she remembered, yet completely different. The main street still had the same brick buildings, but now they housed trendy cafes and boutique shops instead of the hardware store and pharmacy of her childhood. The ocean stretched beyond, grey-blue and infinite. "Last stop, Coastal Haven," the driver announced with evident relief. Winston had that effect on people. Mr. Collins was waiting at the station, looking frailer than Harper remembered. His once robust frame had thinned, his face more lined, but his smile was the same warm beacon it had always been. "Harper, my dear girl." He pulled her into a careful hug that smelled like peppermint and old books. "You've grown into the spitting image of your father." The words made her throat tight. "Thank you for letting me crash with you, Mr. Collins. I promise it's temporary, just until I figure things out." "Nonsense. You'll stay as long as you need." He bent to pet Winston, who actually wagged his stumpy tail, a rare show of approval. "Though I'm afraid my place isn't suitable anymore. Doctor's orders. I can barely manage stairs now. But I have a solution." Harper's relief deflated. "Oh, I can find a hotel. You'll stay with my grandson. He has plenty of space in that ridiculously oversized penthouse of his. I couldn't impose on a stranger. Logan's family. Your father would have wanted him to help." Mr. Collins's expression brooked no argument. "Besides, the boy needs some life shaken into him. All work and no play, that one. You'll do him good." Before Harper could protest further, a sleek black Mercedes pulled up to the curb with the kind of precision that suggested the driver had measured the parking job with a ruler. The man who emerged made Harper's artist brain immediately categorize him. Strong jawline that could cut glass, dark hair immaculately styled, suit that probably cost more than her entire art supply collection, eyes the color of storm clouds, currently narrowed in what appeared to be chronic annoyance. He was objectively gorgeous in that uptight, too perfect to be approachable way, like a sculpture you admired in museums but would never touch. "Grandfather," his voice was deep, controlled. "I was in a meeting." "And now you're not," Mr. Collins replied cheerfully. "Logan, this is Harper Morgan, James's daughter. She'll be staying with you for a while." Logan's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. His gaze swept over Harper in a quick assessment that made her painfully aware of her wrinkled travel clothes, smudged makeup, and the fact that she was clutching a cactus like a security blanket. "A while," he repeated flatly. "Is that a problem?" Harper asked, lifting her chin. She'd been humiliated enough this week. She wasn't about to let some uptight CEO make her feel small too. "I wasn't consulted." Logan directed this at his grandfather, not her. "I'm consulting you now," Mr. Collins said, a steel edge entering his warm tone. "Harper needs family. We are family. That's the end of the discussion. Something flickered in Logan's expression. Guilt, maybe, or resignation. He looked at Harper again, this time his gaze lingering on the cactus. Is that thing going to shed needles all over my apartment? Only if provoked, Harper shot back. Kind of like its owner. Was that the ghost of a smirk on his face? No, couldn't be. His expression was already back to neutral. Fine. Logan popped the trunk of his Mercedes with his key fob. Let's go. That's my boy, Mr. Collins said, patting Logan's arm. Harper, dear, I'll call you tomorrow to make sure you're settled. Logan loaded her single suitcase with the careful precision of someone organizing a filing cabinet. When Winston waddled over and sniffed his expensive shoes, Logan stared down at the dog with what could only be described as mutual suspicion. That's Winston, Harper supplied. He's old, cranky, and gassy. You'll love him. I don't love anything that smells like that, Logan muttered, but he still opened the back door for Winston to climb in. The drive to Logan's building was silent, except for Winston's snoring and Harper's internal screaming. What had she gotten herself into? This man radiated leave-me-alone energy from every pore. She'd escaped one disaster, only to land herself in what appeared to be a pristine, organized nightmare. Logan's plenty of space turned out to be a massive penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ocean. Everything was white, black, or chrome. Minimalist, perfect, sterile. It looked like no one actually lived here. Ground rules, Logan said, setting her suitcase down with geometric precision. I wake at 5 for my workout. No noise before 6. Kitchen is off-limits during meal prep. No items left in common areas. The cleaning service comes Tuesdays and Fridays. Don't interfere with their routine. Harper stared at him. Are you serious right now? Completely. Do you also have a rule about breathing only during designated hours? His eyes narrowed. Mock all you want. Structure creates success. Structure creates constipation, Harper countered. Winston chose that moment to let out a particularly noxious fart. Logan's expression was priceless, somewhere between horror and resignation. Your dog and I are going to have problems, he said. Get in line, Harper replied, setting her cactus on his pristine glass coffee table, right behind you. This was going to be a disaster. Harper could feel it in her bones. She just didn't know yet that it would be the best disaster of her life. Logan Collins prided himself on control. His morning alarm went off at precisely 4:47 a.m., 13 minutes before 5, allowing time to naturally wake before his workout. His coffee maker was programmed to brew at 5:15. His gym routine never varied. By 7:30 he was showered, suited, and ready to conquer whatever challenges his empire threw at him. That system had worked flawlessly for 15 years, until Harper Morgan crashed into his life like a hurricane in wrinkled sundress. Day 3 of cohabitation, and Logan was ready to murder either her or himself. He hadn't decided which would be more merciful. The first sign of trouble came at 5:47 a.m. when he returned from his home gym, sweaty and endorphin high, to find his kitchen, his pristine, organized, perfectly calibrated kitchen, transformed into what appeared to be a botanical experiment gone wrong. Plants. Everywhere. Tiny succulents lined the windowsill. A trailing pothos hung from a hook he certainly hadn't installed. 3 herb plants clustered near the sink, and in the center of his marble counter sat that damned cactus, now surrounded by several smaller cacti offspring, like it was building an army. What? Logan said slowly. Is this? Harper emerged from the guest room in oversized pajamas covered in paint splatters, her hair piled in a messy knot that somehow made his fingers itch to touch it, which was absurd. He didn't do messy. Morning, Mr. Grumpy. She was far too cheerful for before 6 a.m. I'm creating a succulent sanctuary. Plants improve air quality and mood. You look like you could use both. I look. Logan bit back the retort. I specifically said no items in common areas. Plants aren't items, they're living beings. Also, I made coffee. She gestured to his coffee maker, which was currently brewing something that definitely wasn't his usual dark roast. It's a cinnamon-vanilla blend. You're welcome. Logan stared at the coffee maker like it had betrayed him. I have a system. You have a problem, Harper corrected, grabbing a mug, one of his matching white ceramic set, and pouring the offensive cinnamon coffee. Live a little, Logan. Try something new. The way she said his name, casual and teasing, did something strange to his chest. He ignored it. I'll try something new when you try respecting boundaries. I'll respect boundaries when you try smiling. Seriously, do you ever relax? She took a sip of coffee, closing her eyes in apparent bliss. That's good. You should try it. I'm not drinking cinnamon coffee. Suit yourself, Mr. Mandon. Mr. what? Mandon. It's Spanish for bossy. She grinned at him over the rim of her mug. Fits, don't you think? Before Logan could respond, Winston waddled into the kitchen, assessed the situation, and promptly urinated on the leg of Logan's designer bar stool. Winston, no! Harper lunged for the dog, but the damage was done. Logan closed his eyes and counted to 10, then to 20, then to 30. I am so sorry, Harper said, grabbing paper towels. He's old. His bladder isn't what it used to be. I'll clean it immediately. You know what? Fine, great, fantastic. Logan grabbed his briefcase. I have a meeting. Try not to burn down my apartment while I'm gone. Can't promise anything, Harper called after him. I'm making breakfast later. From Harper's perspective, Logan Collins was the most uptight human being she'd ever encountered, and she'd once dated an accountant who color-coded his sock drawer. But here was the problem. He was also unfairly attractive, especially when he got all stern and bossy, jaw clenching, eyes flashing. It made her want to mess with him more, just to see what would break that perfect control. Also, the man looked obscene in workout clothes. She'd caught a glimpse of him returning from his gym this morning, compression shirt clinging to muscles that clearly got a lot of use, shorts showing off legs that had no business being that well defined. Harper had nearly dropped her coffee mug. Down, girl, she muttered to herself, scrubbing at the bar stool. He's basically a robot, a very handsome, infuriating robot. Winston looked up at her with zero remorse. You did that on purpose, didn't you? You don't like him either. Winston farted in response. Harper spent the day unpacking, arranging her art supplies in the guest room, and trying not to feel like she was intruding on a museum exhibit. Everything in Logan's apartment had a place. Everything matched. It was deeply unsettling. By evening, she decided to make a peace offering. Dinner. Nothing fancy, just pasta with homemade marinara, garlic bread, and a salad. Normal people food. Logan arrived home at exactly 6:47 p.m., still in his suit, phone pressed to his ear. No, tell them we need the revised projections by Monday. Yes, Monday. That's not my problem. Make it happen. He ended the call, loosened his tie, and finally noticed Harper in the kitchen. What are you doing? Cooking. It's this thing humans do to sustain life. In my kitchen. It's just pasta, Logan, not a hostile takeover. She stirred the sauce, which was bubbling nicely. Consider it a thank you for letting me stay here. Something in his expression softened just slightly. You don't have to thank me. My grandfather asked, so you're stuck with me. I know. Harper tried to keep her voice light. Story of my life, really. Being the person someone's stuck with. Logan was quiet for a long moment. When she glanced over, he was watching her with an intensity that made her skin warm. I didn't mean it like that, he said quietly. Sure you didn't. Harper forced a smile and reached for the wine bottle she'd opened to add to the sauce. Want some? It's cheap red, so it probably doesn't meet your standards, but I'll take some. Harper poured 2 glasses, surprised. As she handed him one, their fingers brushed. The contact sent an unexpected jolt through her system. Logan pulled back quickly, taking a long sip of wine. Thank you. They ate in awkward silence at his dining table, which Harper suspected was rarely used. She tried not to notice how he rolled up his sleeves before eating, revealing strong forearms. Tried not to watch the way his throat moved when he drank. Tried not to imagine what that controlled exterior would look like, completely undone. This is good, Logan said finally. The pasta. Harper nearly dropped her fork. Was that a compliment? Should I check for signs of the apocalypse? The corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile. Don't let it go to your head. Too late. I'm having it engraved on a plaque. This time he did smile. Small, barely there, but real. Harper's heart did a stupid little flip. This was bad. This was very, very bad. She was not falling for Mr. Mandon and his stupid, perfect face. Absolutely not. Logan had a problem, and her name was Harper Morgan. It had been a week since she'd invaded his perfectly ordered existence, and he found himself thinking about her at the most inconvenient times. During board meetings, while reviewing contracts, at 2 a.m., when he should have been sleeping but instead was hyper-aware that she was just down the hall, probably sprawled across her bed in those ridiculous paint-splattered pajamas. It was unacceptable. She was chaos incarnate. She left coffee mugs on random surfaces. She sang off-key in the shower. She'd somehow taught Winston to bark specifically during his video conferences. Her art supplies had migrated from the guest room to colonize the dining table. And yet, Logan caught himself listening for her laughter, noticed when she bit her lower lip while sketching, found excuses to stay in the kitchen when she was cooking, just to watch her move with unself-conscious grace. This was a problem. He was poring over financial reports at the dining table, Harper's art supplies pushed to one side, when she emerged from her room in a sundress that should have been illegal. Soft yellow fabric that made her skin glow, thin straps that drew his eyes to her shoulders. Logan forced his attention back to his laptop with more determination than necessary. "Working on a Friday night?" Harper asked, padding into the kitchen. Shocking. Some of us have responsibilities, and some of us know how to live. She pulled out ingredients for what appeared to be salad. "When's the last time you did something just for fun?" Logan considered. "I enjoy my work." "That's sad. That's genuinely sad." Harper started chopping vegetables with the confidence of someone who'd never used a cutting board properly. "You need a hobby, something that's not work or working out." "I'm perfectly satisfied with my life," said every person in denial ever. Logan glared at his spreadsheet, trying to ignore how the evening light caught in her hair. "Some of us prefer structure over chaos, and some of us prefer living over existing." Harper reached for the wine bottle on the counter, the same cheap red from earlier in the week. "Want some? I'm having some." "I'm working." "That's a no then." She poured herself a generous glass and turned, gesturing animatedly with her free hand. "You know what your problem is." The hand holding the wine glass swung out. Time slowed. Logan watched, helpless, as red wine arced through the air in a perfect crimson trajectory, directly toward his white dress shirt. The impact was cold, wet, irreversible. Harper's eyes went wide with horror. Oh my God, I'm so sorry." Logan looked down at his ruined shirt, then up at Harper, who'd gone pale. "I didn't. It was an accident. I'll pay for dry cleaning." She grabbed a dish towel and rushed toward him. "Let me help." Before Logan could protest, Harper was dabbing at his chest with the towel, standing so close he could smell her shampoo, something coconut and sweet. Her hands pressed against the wet fabric, trying futilely to absorb the wine. "You're making it worse," Logan said, voice rougher than intended. "I know, I'm sorry, I just—" Harper looked up, and suddenly their faces were inches apart. Logan's brain short-circuited. Her eyes were hazel, he noticed for the first time, green with gold flecks, wide and luminous and currently locked on his with an intensity that made his chest tighten. Her hand stilled against his chest. He could feel the warmth of her palm through the wet fabric, feel his own heartbeat thundering beneath it. Could she feel it too? Harper's lips parted slightly. Her tongue darted out to wet them. Logan's gaze dropped to her mouth. One step forward, and he could— What was he thinking? He stepped back abruptly, breaking the moment. Harper's hand fell away. "I should—" Logan cleared his throat. "I need to change." "Right. Yes. Of course." Harper was flushed, clutching the wine-stained towel. "I really am sorry." Logan nodded stiffly and escaped to his bedroom, closing the door with more force than necessary. He stripped off the ruined shirt with shaking hands, tossing it toward the hamper. What the hell was wrong with him? This was his grandfather's dying friend's daughter, a woman recovering from heartbreak, a woman under his protection, a woman who made him feel things he had no business feeling. Logan pressed his palms against the dresser, staring at his reflection in the mirror above it. His jaw was clenched so tight it hurt. His pupils were dilated. He looked like a man on the edge of control. Unacceptable. In the living room, Harper collapsed onto the couch, wineglass abandoned on the coffee table next to her faithful cactus. "What?" she whispered to Winston, who'd waddled over to investigate. "Was that—" The moment their eyes had met, something had shifted. The air had changed, charged with electricity that made her skin tingle. She'd been painfully aware of every point of contact, her hand on his chest, the heat of his body, the way his breath had hitched, and his eyes. God, his eyes. They'd dropped to her mouth with an intensity that had made her knees weak. For one breathless second, she'd thought he might kiss her. For one terrifying second, she'd wanted him to. "No," Harper said firmly to Winston. "Absolutely not. We are not doing this. He's uptight and controlling and completely wrong for me. This is just proximity. And rebound feelings. And maybe a little bit of sexual frustration because he looks like that in workout clothes." Winston tilted his head skeptically. "Okay, a lot of sexual frustration, but that doesn't mean anything." Harper grabbed a throw pillow and pressed it against her face. "I just escaped one disaster. I'm not diving into another one." Even as she said it, she knew she was lying to herself. Something had changed tonight. Some invisible line had been crossed, and Harper had no idea how to uncross it. When Logan finally emerged 20 minutes later in a casual t-shirt and jeans, she'd never seen him in jeans before, he wouldn't quite meet her eyes. "I'm ordering takeout," he said, voice carefully neutral. "Ty okay?" "Perfect." They ate in front of the TV, maintaining a careful distance, neither acknowledging what had almost happened. But Harper noticed the way Logan's gaze kept drifting to her when he thought she wasn't looking. And he noticed the way her breath caught when their hands accidentally brushed, reaching for the remote. The apartment felt smaller somehow, the air thicker. It was going to be a long night, and an even longer week ahead. 3 weeks into their cohabitation, Logan had developed several new habits he refused to acknowledge as habits. He started brewing Harper's ridiculous cinnamon coffee alongside his dark roast. He found himself scheduling morning meetings for 9 a.m. instead of 7 a.m., which gave him an extra hour to have breakfast with her. Not that he'd admit that was the reason. He'd stopped complaining about Winston's snoring during video calls, because Harper's delighted laughter when it happened was worth the embarrassment. He was, Logan realized with growing horror, becoming domesticated. "Taste this," Harper demanded, appearing at his side while he reviewed contracts at the kitchen counter. She held up a wooden spoon, loaded with something that smelled incredible. "I'm working." "You're always working. Open." She waved the spoon in front of his face. Logan sighed and opened his mouth. The flavors hit his tongue. Rich tomato, garlic, herbs he couldn't name. It was possibly the best thing he'd ever tasted. "Well?" Harper watched him expectantly, lower lip caught between her teeth in that way that made his concentration evaporate. "It's acceptable." "Acceptable." She swatted his arm with the spoon, leaving a small sauce stain on his sleeve. "That's my grandmother's secret recipe. It's not acceptable, it's magnificent. It stained my shirt." "Your shirt will survive. Try being less uptight for 5 seconds." Harper turned back to the stove, hips swaying to music only she could hear. Logan stared at the tiny sauce stain, then at Harper's back. Without thinking, he said, "Teach me." She spun around. "What?" "The recipe. Teach me how to make it." Where had that come from? Logan didn't cook beyond basic meal prep. Harper's face lit up like he'd offered her the moon. "Really? You want to learn?" Too late to back out now. "Sure." "Oh my God, this is amazing." She grabbed his hand and pulled him toward the stove. "Okay, first you need to understand that cooking is about feeling, not just following rules. Everything should follow rules. And that's why you're a disaster in the kitchen." Harper positioned him in front of the stove, then stepped behind him. "Here, hold the spoon like this." She guided his hand, her body pressed against his back, her chin nearly resting on his shoulder. Logan's brain turned to static. "Now you want to stir gently, in a figure-8 pattern," Harper said, her breath warm against his neck. Her hand covered his, guiding the movement. "Feel the consistency? That's how you know it's ready." Logan felt nothing except the soft curves of her body against his, the way her hair tickled his jaw, the scent of coconut and something uniquely Harper. His grip on the spoon tightened. "Logan, are you paying attention?" Not even slightly. "Yes." "Then what did I just say?" "Figure-8. Consistency." He'd absorbed that much before his higher brain functions shut down. Harper laughed, the sound vibrating through him. "Good. Now taste it again and tell me what it needs." She lifted the spoon to his lips, and Logan had to physically restrain himself from turning around and kissing her instead. This was torture. Sweet, domestic torture. "More salt," he managed. "See? You're learning." Harper squeezed his arm and stepped away, taking all the warmth with her. By the end of the month, I'll have you cooking like a proper Italian grandmother. Logan doubted that, but he found himself looking forward to more lessons. His phone rang, his grandfather's number. Logan answered immediately. "Grandfather, is everything—" "Logan." The voice wasn't his grandfather's. It was his grandfather's home care nurse, Maria. "You need to come to the hospital. Now." It's his heart. The spoon clattered to the floor. Thursday horrifying the hospital waiting room was a special kind of purgatory. Fluorescent lights, uncomfortable plastic chairs, and the smell of antiseptic that Logan would forever associate with loss. Harper sat beside him, her hand wrapped around his, thumb tracing soothing circles on his palm. She hadn't let go since they'd arrived 2 hours ago. "He's going to be okay," she said quietly. "Mr. Collins is tough." Logan wanted to believe her. His grandfather was the only family he had left, the only person who'd stayed when his mother had walked away 30 years ago. The man who'd raised him, taught him everything, loved him unconditionally. If he lost him, Logan Collins? A doctor appeared, looking tired. Logan shot to his feet, Harper rising with him. "How is he?" "Stable. It was a significant cardiac event, but we got him stabilized. He's asking for you." The relief nearly buckled Logan's knees. His grandfather looked small in the hospital bed, hooked up to machines that beeped rhythmically, but his eyes were clear when Logan entered. "You look terrible," the old man said, voice weak but wry. "You're one to talk." Logan pulled a chair close, taking his grandfather's hand. It felt fragile, papery. When had he gotten so old? "Is Harper here?" "In the waiting room." "Good. That's good." His grandfather's grip tightened slightly. "Logan, I need you to promise me something. Anything. Take care of her, Harper. She's lost so much. Her father, now this business with that worthless boyfriend. She needs family." His eyes fixed on Logan's face with surprising intensity. "Promise me you'll treat her like family. Protect her. Don't let her be alone again. Like family." The words echoed in Logan's head. "I promise," Logan said, because how could he refuse? His grandfather had given him everything. "Good boy." The old man's eyes drifted closed. "She's special, that girl. Your father would have loved her." Logan sat there long after his grandfather fell asleep, the promise sitting heavy in his chest, like family. He thought about Harper's hand in his, the way she'd pressed against him in the kitchen, the electricity that sparked every time they touched, the wanting that kept him awake at night. That wasn't familial. That was something else entirely. And now he'd promised to treat her like family, to protect her, to be what she needed, not what he wanted. Logan dropped his head into his hands. He'd just promised to keep the one thing he was starting to crave most at arm's length. When he returned to the waiting room, Harper looked up with worried eyes. "How is he?" "Stable, sleeping." She sagged with relief. "Thank God." Logan looked at her, really looked at her. The mess of hair, the oversized sweatshirt, the bare feet tucked under her in the uncomfortable hospital chair, because she'd run out in such a rush she'd forgotten shoes. She was beautiful, chaotic and warm and everything he'd never known he wanted, and absolutely off limits. "Let's go home," he said, voice flat. Harper frowned at his tone, but didn't comment. The drive back was silent. So was the walk to the apartment. So was the goodnight Logan gave her before shutting himself in his room. He heard her pause outside his door, heard the soft sound of her hand against the wood, like she might knock. She didn't, and Logan told himself it was better this way. Even as something in his chest cracked at the sound of her retreating footsteps. Harper knew something had changed, but she couldn't figure out what. After that night at the hospital, Logan had become a ghost. Oh, he was physically present. She saw him every morning when he emerged from his gym, every evening when he returned from work. But the warmth that had been slowly building between them had vanished, replaced by a cold courtesy that hurt worse than his initial hostility. No more cooking lessons, no more shared breakfasts, no more accidental touches that lingered too long. He'd rebuilt his walls, and Harper had no idea why. "Did I do something wrong?" she asked Winston, who was wholly unsympathetic to her plight. The bulldog simply wheezed and rolled over, demanding belly rubs. It was week 5 of living with Logan, and Harper felt lonelier than she had in the immediate aftermath of Marcus's betrayal. At least then, the enemy had been clear. Now she was fighting shadows. She'd tried asking Logan directly, "Are you okay? You've been distant." "I'm fine, just busy with work." She'd tried giving him space, staying in her room more, keeping Winston quiet during his calls. Nothing changed. The worst part, she'd started to fall for him. Somewhere between the pasta lessons and the hospital waiting room, between his reluctant smiles and the way he'd memorized how she took her coffee, Harper had developed feelings that went way beyond inappropriate roommate attraction, and now he was treating her like a stranger he was obligated to tolerate. "I'm too much again," Harper whispered to her reflection one morning. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. She hadn't been sleeping well. He realized, "I'm too chaotic, too messy, too everything." The familiar spiral of self-doubt wrapped around her chest, squeezing. By day 3 of Logan's deep freeze, Harper woke up feeling like she'd been hit by a truck. Her throat was raw, her head pounded, and when she tried to get out of bed, the room spun. "Great," she croaked. Perfect timing for the flu. She managed to stumble to the bathroom for medicine before collapsing back into bed. Winston, sensing something was wrong, climbed up beside her despite his arthritis and pressed his warm body against hers. "Good boy," Harper whispered, pulling a blanket over both of them. She must have fallen asleep, because the next thing she knew, her bedroom door was opening. Logan stood in the doorway, still in his suit from work, face carefully neutral. "You didn't come out for coffee. I wanted to make sure." He stopped, actually looking at her. "You're sick." "There's just a cold," Harper mumbled, though even talking hurt. Logan's jaw tightened. He disappeared and Harper figured that was that. Of course he'd avoid her. Can't have the messy house guest contaminating his perfect space. But he came back 5 minutes later, suit jacket discarded, carrying a thermometer and a glass of water. "Sit up." "Logan, you don't have to—" "Sit up." His tone brooked no argument. Harper struggled upright. Logan pressed the thermometer to her forehead with surprising gentleness. When it beeped, his frown deepened. 102.3. "When did this start?" "This morning." "Have you taken anything?" "Some cold medicine. Maybe an hour ago." Logan nodded and left again. This time he returned with soup, crackers, more water, and a cool compress. "I have meetings," Harper protested weakly, as he settled the tray on her nightstand. "Cancel them." "You can't just—" "Harper." Logan's voice was firm, but not unkind. "Rest. That's not a request." Over the next several hours, Harper drifted in and out of feverish sleep. Every time she woke, Logan was there, changing the compress on her forehead, bringing fresh water, checking her temperature. Once she surfaced to find him sitting in the chair beside her bed, laptop balanced on his knees, working quietly while Winston snored at his feet. "You're still here," she murmured, confused. Logan looked up. In the dim light from her bedside lamp, his expression was unguarded, worried. "Where else would I be? You've been avoiding me for days." Something flickered across his face. "I haven't been—" He stopped. "That's not what I'm doing." "Then, what are you doing?" Harper tried to sit up, but a coughing fit seized her. Immediately Logan was there, one hand supporting her back, the other holding water to her lips. "Easy. Don't talk. Just breathe." When the coughing subsided, Harper found herself leaning against his chest, his arm around her shoulders, and she was too tired and sick to pretend she didn't want this. Didn't want him. "Why?" she asked quietly. "Why did you pull away?" Logan was silent so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "Because I promised to take care of you, to treat you like family." Harper pulled back to look at him, confused. "I don't understand." "I know." His hand came up, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear with devastating tenderness. The gesture contradicted everything he'd been doing for the past few days. "You don't need to. Just rest." "Logan." "Shh." He settled her back against the pillows, pulling the blanket up. "You don't have to be strong alone right now. Let me take care of this." The words struck something deep in Harper's chest. She'd been strong alone for so long, through her father's death, through building her career, through Marcus's betrayal, always alone, always fighting, always proving she didn't need anyone. But lying here, sick and vulnerable, with Logan's hand gentle on her forehead, she realized she didn't want to be alone anymore. "Stay," she whispered. Logan hesitated, every line of his body tense with internal battle. Then he nodded. "I'll stay." He settled back in the chair, Laptop reopened. But every few minutes, Harper felt his gaze on her, checking, worrying, caring. Even as he tried to maintain distance, his actions spoke volumes. Harper fell asleep with that knowledge warming her more than any fever could. When she woke again, hours later, the fever had broken. Logan was still there, now asleep in the chair, head tilted at an angle that would definitely give him neck pain. His laptop had slid onto the floor. Winston had moved to sleep across Logan's feet. In sleep, Logan's face lost its harsh control. He looked younger, vulnerable, beautiful. Harper's heart clenched. She was in so much trouble. Because somewhere between the cold distance and the gentle care, between the promise he'd made and the feelings he was fighting, Harper had fallen completely, irreversibly in love with Logan Collins, and she had no idea what to do about it. Recovery from the flu was apparently an excuse for Logan to become a tyrant. "You're supposed to stay in bed," he said, appearing in the living room doorway where Harper had relocated with her sketchpad and Winston. "I've been in bed for 3 days. I'm going stir-crazy. Doctor said rest. I am resting, on the couch, which is restful." Harper gestured at her setup, blankets, pillows, tea, and approximately 17 different snacks Logan had arranged on the coffee table. "See? Very restful." Logan's jaw did that tightening thing that Harper had learned, meant he was trying not to smile. "You're impossible. And you're bossy. We've established this." She patted the couch beside her. "Sit. Tell me about your day. I've been isolated from human interaction. You talked to my grandfather for an hour this morning. That's different. He tells me embarrassing stories about you as a child." Harper grinned. "Did you really cry when your pet goldfish died and insist on having a funeral with a eulogy?" Logan's ears turned slightly red. "I was 7. You wore a tiny suit." "My grandfather talks too much." But he sat down on the opposite end of the couch, maintaining careful distance. Always careful distance now. Harper had spent 3 days delirious with fever, but she remembered fragments. Logan's hand on her forehead, his voice low and soothing, telling her to rest. The way he'd stayed in that uncomfortable chair for hours. The walls he immediately rebuilt the moment she started feeling better. "Tell me about your big project," Harper said, tucking her feet under her blanket. "The one that has you working until midnight every night." Logan hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. "It's a waterfront development. Mixed use, residential, commercial, green spaces. If it goes through, it'll revitalize the entire harbor district." "That sounds amazing." Harper leaned forward, genuinely interested. "Can I see the plans?" Logan looked surprised. "You want to see development plans?" "I'm an artist. I appreciate good design. Plus, you're clearly passionate about it, and I want to understand what makes Mr. Mandon light up." There, a real smile, small but real. "Stop calling me that. Make me." Logan shook his head, but pulled out his tablet, opening architectural renderings. As he explained his vision, his whole demeanor changed. The stiffness melted away. His hands moved expressively, his eyes lit with enthusiasm. Harper found herself less interested in the buildings and more captivated by the transformation in the man beside her. "This section here," Logan pointed to a waterfront park. "I want it to have native plants, sustainable landscaping, a space that gives back to the ecosystem while serving the community." "That's beautiful," Harper said softly. Not the design, though it was gorgeous, but the care behind it. "You really love this, don't you?" Logan looked up and their eyes met. For a moment, the carefully maintained distance vanished. "I want to build things that last, that matter, that make people's lives better." "You're already doing that." The words came out before Harper could stop them. "You made my life better." Logan's expression shuttered. "Harper, I'm not asking for anything," she interrupted. "I just wanted you to know. These past weeks, even with everything being complicated, you've been—" She paused, searching for words. "You've been a safe place when I needed one, so thank you." Logan stared at her, something raw flickering in his eyes. His mouth opened, then closed. Finally, "You're welcome." The moment stretched between them, heavy with words unsaid. Winston broke it by releasing a fart so potent it could be classified as a biological weapon. "Oh my God," Logan choked out, waving his hand in front of his face. "What do you feed him?" "Hope and dreams, apparently." Harper was laughing so hard she couldn't breathe properly, which triggered a coughing fit. Immediately, Logan moved closer, hand on her back. "Easy, breathe." "I'm fine," Harper gasped, still laughing. "Winston's just defending my honor." "By chemical warfare?" "He's got limited options at his age." Winston, completely unrepentant, rolled onto his back and demanded belly rubs. "Unbelievable," Logan muttered, but Harper saw him sneak a pat to Winston's head when he thought she wasn't looking. They spent the rest of the evening like that, Logan explaining his projects, Harper sketching design ideas that made him laugh, Winston providing unwelcome sound effects. It felt domestic, comfortable, right. When Harper's eyes started drooping around 9 o'clock, Logan stood to leave. "Get some sleep, real sleep in your bed." "Yes, sir." Harper mock saluted. Logan paused at the doorway, looking back. In the soft lamplight, his expression was unguarded again. "I'm glad you're feeling better. Thanks for taking care of me. You didn't have to." "I wanted to." The admission seemed to surprise him as much as it did her. Then he was gone, disappearing into his room. Harper sat there for a long moment, heart doing complicated gymnastics in her chest. 3 days ago, delirious with fever, she'd thought Logan whispered something to her. Something that sounded like, "You're making this so hard." She'd convinced herself it was a fever dream. Now, she wasn't so sure. And later that week, Harper convinced Logan to teach her about his morning routine. "You want to work out? With me?" Logan looked skeptical. "You called my gym a medieval torture chamber. I'm expanding my horizons. Plus, you're always lecturing me about structure. Show me the magic." What followed was the most entertaining hour of Logan's recent memory. Harper approached exercise with the same chaotic enthusiasm she brought to everything else. She got distracted by the sunrise view mid-plank. She kept trying to have conversations during cardio. She somehow got tangled in resistance bands. "How is this even possible?" Logan asked, carefully untangling her. "These aren't complicated. I have a gift." Harper grinned up at him from her position on the floor, hair a mess, face flushed. She looked beautiful. It was becoming a problem. Logan pulled her to her feet. "Come on, I'll show you proper form on the weights." He positioned himself behind her, hands guiding her arms. It was too similar to the cooking lesson. His heart rate, which had finally calmed from his workout, kicked back up. "Like this?" Harper asked, and he could hear the smile in her voice. "Exactly like that." His voice came out rougher than intended. When they finished, Harper collapsed dramatically on his pristine gym mat. "I'm dying. This is what dying feels like." "You did 15 minutes. 15 minutes of hell." But she was laughing. "How do you do this every day?" "Discipline, structure, control." "That sounds exhausting." Harper sat up, serious now. "Don't you ever want to just let go?" Logan looked at her, really looked at her, sweaty, disheveled, completely uncontrolled. Everything he usually avoided, everything he was starting to crave. "Sometimes," he admitted quietly. "Sometimes I do." Harper's breath caught, their eyes held. "Logan," his phone rang. Work. Always work. Logan grabbed it like a lifeline, stepping away from the moment, from the wanting, from the dangerous territory they kept approaching. But as he took the call, he felt Harper's eyes on him, and he knew she knew. The question was, what were they going to do about it? Harper had developed a new project, organizing documents for Mr. Collins. The old man, now recovering at home with strict doctor's orders, had asked her to sort through years of paperwork stored in boxes at Logan's apartment. "I don't know why he kept all this at your place," Harper said one evening, surrounded by file folders on the living room floor. Logan's pristine apartment looked like a paper explosion had occurred. "He moved some things here when he downsized last year," Logan explained, stepping carefully around her organized chaos. "I was supposed to go through it. Never found the time." Shocking. The man who works 80-hour weeks didn't have time for personal projects. Harper held up a yellowed photograph. "Is this you? Oh my God, you had the chunkiest cheeks." Logan snatched the photo. "I was too." "You were adorable." "What happened?" "Hilarious." But he was almost smiling as he headed to the kitchen. Harper returned to sorting, creating piles by category. Financial documents, personal letters, old photos. It was tedious work, but she didn't mind. It felt good to be useful, to have a purpose beyond moping about her complicated feelings for her host. 2 hours later, Logan returned from a late call to find Harper still working, though her movements had slowed. Papers were spread across every surface, and she was squinting at a document like it might make sense if she just focused hard enough. "It's past midnight," Logan said. "Almost done. Just need to—" Harper yawned widely. "Finish this section." "You've been working for 4 hours." "So have you." She gestured at his laptop bag. "Don't be a hypocrite." Logan couldn't argue with that. 10 more minutes, then bed." "Yes, Dad," Harper muttered, but there was affection in her voice. 30 minutes later, Logan emerged from his bedroom to get water and found Harper still in the living room. She'd migrated to the couch, legal documents spread around her, but her eyes were closed. Her head was tilted at an awkward angle against the couch arm, mouth slightly open. One hand still clutched a file folder. Logan stood there just watching her sleep. In repose, her face was soft, peaceful. The worry lines that sometimes appeared between her eyebrows when she thought he wasn't looking, they were gone now. She'd been working so hard lately, helping his grandfather, trying to establish her freelance design business, keeping the apartment manageable despite her natural chaos, trying not to burden anyone, trying to be less of herself, Logan realized with a pang. He moved quietly, carefully extracting the folder from her grip. He gathered the documents, organizing them into neat stacks she could return to tomorrow. Then he grabbed the soft throw blanket from the other chair. Harper stirred as he draped it over her, mumbling something incoherent. Logan froze, but she didn't wake, just burrowed deeper into the couch cushions. He should leave, should go to bed, should maintain the distance he'd been trying so desperately to keep. Instead, Logan found himself kneeling beside the couch, eye level with her sleeping face. She was beautiful, not in the polished magazine cover way, but in a real way, laugh lines around her eyes. A small scar on her chin, she'd told him, came from falling out of a tree as a kid, the way her nose crinkled when she slept. Beautiful in all the ways that mattered, and she was destroying him. Every smile, every laugh, every moment she challenged his rigid worldview and made him question whether control was really what he wanted or just what he'd convinced himself he needed. Logan reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear with a gentleness that would have surprised anyone who knew him professionally. "You're making this impossible," he whispered to her sleeping form. The words he'd been holding back for weeks. "Every day you make it harder to remember why I'm supposed to keep you at arm's length." Harper's breathing remained steady, peaceful. "I promise to treat you like family, to protect you." Logan's jaw clenched. "But what I feel isn't familial. It's not protective. Well, it is, but it's also—" He stopped, unable to say it even to her unconscious form, but his hand moved of its own accord, brushing her cheek with his thumb. "How did you do this?" His voice was barely audible. "How did you walk into my perfectly ordered life and make me want to throw every rule out the window?" Harper sighed in her sleep, a small sound that made his chest tighten. Logan leaned forward and pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead. The contact lasted only seconds, but it felt monumental. A line crossed, a truth acknowledged. "How did you make me fall for you so completely?" He breathed against her skin. Then he pulled back, standing quickly. This was wrong. She was asleep, vulnerable. She hadn't consented to any of this, hadn't heard his confession. It wasn't fair to her. Logan grabbed his water and retreated to his room, closing the door with a quiet click. He didn't see Harper's eyes flutter open moments later. Didn't see the way her hand rose to touch her forehead where his lips had been. Didn't see the tear that slipped down her cheek. Not from sadness, but from the overwhelming realization that he felt it too. Despite all his distance, despite the walls, despite whatever promise held him back, he felt it too. Harper lay there in the darkness, heart racing, blanket pulled to her chin. "I love you," she whispered to the empty room. "God help me. I'm in love with you." Winston, who'd been sleeping under the coffee table, grunted as if to say, "Finally figured that out, did you?" Harper almost laughed. Almost. But the weight of the moment, of loving someone who was fighting so hard against loving her back, pressed down on her chest. She knew now what held him back. That promise to his grandfather, treating her like family. But families didn't look at each other the way Logan had looked at her in the gym. Didn't create the kind of electricity that sparked every time they touched. Didn't whisper confessions to sleeping forms at midnight. Harper pulled the blanket tighter, breathing in the faint scent of Logan's cologne that lingered on the fabric. Something had to give. This tension, this wanting, this constant push and pull, it couldn't sustain itself. Eventually, one of them would break. Harper just hoped that when they did, they'd break toward each other instead of apart. Verses to for the next morning. Neither mentioned the night before. Logan was already gone when Harper woke, a fresh pot of cinnamon coffee waiting in the kitchen. Beside the coffee maker sat a single note in his precise handwriting. "You work too hard. Take today off. L." Harper held the note like it was made of gold. Such a small gesture. Such a Logan gesture. Caring disguised as commanding. She tucked the note into her sketchbook, pressing it between blank pages. Someday, she told herself, someday she'd tell him she'd heard everything. But not yet. Not until he was ready to say it to her face. Until then, she'd hold on to that whispered confession in the dark, a secret promise that maybe, just maybe, they had a chance. Harper was having a good morning. She'd finished a freelance design project. Winston hadn't destroyed anything in 48 hours, and Logan had actually laughed, really laughed, at breakfast when she'd told him about the time she accidentally dyed her hair green in college. Then Marcus showed up at the door holding roses, and her good morning evaporated. Harper. He looked different, thinner, tired. His usually perfect hair was disheveled. "Please, just 5 minutes." "How did you find me?" Harper's hand tightened on the doorframe, blocking entry. "Your mom, I've been calling everyone. Harper, I need to apologize, really apologize. You humiliated me at my own birthday party. I think we're past apologies." I know I'm a complete asshole." Marcus's eyes were red-rimmed. Had he been crying? "I've been in therapy. Real therapy. Working on my issues, my fear of commitment, the way I sabotaged our relationship." Harper stared at him. This was not the Marcus she knew. That Marcus had been confident to the point of arrogance, never admitted fault, never showed vulnerability. "Therapy," she repeated flatly. "Twice a week for 2 months. Harper, I'm not asking you to take me back. I just need you to know what I did, it wasn't about you. It was never about you not being enough. You were always too good for me. That was the problem." Something in Harper's chest loosened slightly. Not forgiveness, not even close. But maybe. "Closure? Come in," she heard herself say. "Just for a few minutes." What Harper didn't see was Logan returning early from his morning run, stopping short at the sight of her ex-boyfriend standing in the hallway. Didn't see the way his jaw clenched, the way his hands fisted at his sides. Didn't see him turn around and leave without a word. Oscar's dear watch up inside. Marcus sat carefully on the edge of Logan's pristine white couch, looking as out of place as Harper had felt her first day here. "Nice place," he said awkwardly. "It's not mine. I'm staying with a friend." Harper remained standing, arms crossed. Winston had positioned himself between them, growling low. "Good dog. Look, I'm not going to take up much of your time." Marcus twisted the roses in his hands. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry. Genuinely, deeply sorry. The way I ended things was cruel. Unforgivable, really. But I wanted you to know that it wasn't about you being too much or too messy or any of the stupid things I said. Then what was it about? Me being too little, too immature, too scared." Marcus met her eyes. "You're this amazing, vibrant person who feels everything so deeply. And I was terrified I couldn't match that intensity. So I sabotaged us before you could realize you deserved better." Harper sat down, surprised. "That's actually insightful. My therapist is very good." A ghost of his old smile. "Expensive, but good." They talked for an hour. Not about getting back together. Harper felt nothing but residual hurt when she looked at him, but about patterns, mistakes, growth. Marcus apologized repeatedly. Harper found herself able to accept the apologies without needing to forgive. "I don't hate you anymore," she said finally. "I don't know if that's good or bad." "It's good. Hate takes too much energy." Marcus stood. "I should go. Thank you for listening. That's more than I deserved." As Harper walked him to the door, Marcus paused. "Whoever you're staying with, the friend with the fancy penthouse, I hope they know how lucky they are." After he left, Harper felt lighter. Not healed exactly, but like she'd finally closed a chapter that had been left hanging. She just wished the next chapter wasn't so complicated. Into Logan returned to find Harper on the couch with Winston, looking contemplative. "You're back early," she said. "I thought you had meetings until 6. "Cancelled." He didn't look at her, heading straight for his room. "I have work to do." "Logan, wait." Harper stood. "Are you okay?" "Fine." "You don't seem fine." "Harper." His voice was cold in a way she hadn't heard since the first week. "I said I'm fine. Drop it." He disappeared into his room, door closing with finality. Harper stood there, confused and hurt. What had she done? Things had been getting better, warmer, and now he was back to acting like she was an inconvenient obligation. Her phone buzzed. A text from Logan's best friend Derek, whom she'd met briefly last week. "Logan's at my place, thought you should know, he's being an idiot." Harper frowned. Logan had said he had work to do. Why would he lie about going to Derek's? At Derek's apartment, Logan was on his 3rd beer and showing no signs of slowing down. "So, let me get this straight," Derek said, clearly enjoying himself. "The ex shows up with flowers, has a conversation with Harper, leaves, and you've decided this means she's getting back together with him? He was in her life for 3 years. They have history. And you've been living with her for 2 months, making her cinnamon coffee, teaching her to cook, staying up all night when she's sick. But sure, roses definitely win." Logan glared at his best friend. "I can't give her what she needs." "Which is what? Love? Stability? A man who looks at her like she hung the moon? Because I've seen you do all 3. I promised my grandfather—" "Oh, we're back to that." Derek set down his beer with exaggerated care. "Logan, buddy, I love you like a brother. But you're being spectacularly stupid right now. I'm being responsible. You're being a coward." Derek's voice was gentle but firm. "Your grandfather wanted you to take care of Harper. But taking care of someone doesn't mean keeping them at arm's length. It means being there, supporting them, maybe even loving them when they need it. It's not that simple." "It actually is. You're making it complicated, because you're scared." Derek leaned forward. "You're terrified that if you let yourself love her, she'll leave. Like your mum did, like everyone does." Logan flinched. That's exactly what this is. You're so busy protecting yourself from potential hurt that you're guaranteeing it. Because if you keep pushing Harper away, eventually she will leave. And it won't be because she wanted to. It'll be because you forced her out." The words hit Logan like a physical blow. "You're in love with her," Derek continued relentlessly. "Anyone with eyes can see it. The question is, are you going to do something about it, or are you going to let her slip away?" Logan dropped his head into his hands. "What if I'm not enough? What if she realizes I'm too rigid, too controlled, too much of an idiot?" Derek supplied helpfully. "Look, I've seen the way she looks at you. That woman is crazy about you. But she won't wait forever while you work through your emotional constipation. You have a terrible bedside manner. I'm not a doctor. I'm your best friend, which means I get to tell you when you're screwing up." Derek stood, pulling Logan to his feet. "Go home. Talk to her. Tell her how you feel. Stop being noble and start being honest." Logan wanted to. God, he wanted to. But the image of Marcus with those roses, of Harper's face when she'd invited him in, it haunted him. "I need to think," Logan said. "No, you need to act, before it's too late." But Logan was already heading for the door. He'd give Harper space, let her figure out what she wanted. It was the right thing to do, the honorable thing, even if it killed him. 3 days of Logan's renewed cold shoulder, and Harper was done trying to figure out what she'd done wrong. She threw herself into organizing Mr. Collins's documents with aggressive efficiency. If Logan wanted space, fine. She'd give him space. She'd finish this project and start looking for her own place. She was sitting cross-legged on the floor, sorting through the last box of papers, when she found it. A property deed. Small plot of land on the waterfront. Owner, James Morgan. Harper's hands started shaking. Her father. This was her father's property, a piece of him she'd never known existed. She scanned the document quickly. The land had been purchased 35 years ago, transferred to a trust in Harper's name when she turned 18. But she'd never known, never been told. Why hadn't her mother mentioned this? Why hadn't Mr. Collins? Harper's thoughts stuttered to a halt as she noticed the date on the attached assessment form. 3 weeks ago. Property evaluated for potential commercial development. Signature at the bottom. Logan Collins. The air left her lungs in a rush. Logan had known. For 3 weeks he'd known about this property and hadn't said a word. With trembling fingers, Harper opened her laptop and searched the property address. The first result made her stomach drop. Collins Development Group announces major waterfront project. She clicked through to Logan's company website. There, in glossy professional photos, was the exact area. His big project. His career-defining deal. And her father's property sat right in the middle of it. Harper sat there, surrounded by papers, as the pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. Logan hadn't taken her in out of kindness. The cooking lessons, the gentle care when she was sick, the almost moments between them, all of it had been a manipulation, a way to keep her close, compliant, until he could figure out how to get the property from her. She'd been so stupid. So desperate for someone to want her that she'd missed all the signs. The sound of the door opening made Harper's head snap up. Logan entered, still in his suit from work, phone to his ear. "I'll call you back," he said into the phone, taking in Harper's expression. "Harper, what's wrong? When were you going to tell me?" Her voice came out surprisingly steady. "Tell you what?" Harper held up the deed. "About this, about my father's property." Logan's face went carefully blank. "Harper, you knew. For 3 weeks, you knew I owned land my father left me, and you said nothing." She stood, papers clenched in her fist. "This is the property you need for your development project, isn't it?" "Yes, but what?" Harper's voice rose. "But you were waiting for the right moment to manipulate me into selling it? Was that the plan? Get the broken-hearted girl to trust you, maybe even fall for you, and then ask for the one thing you actually wanted? It's not like that." Logan took a step forward. She took a step back. "Then what is it like? Explain to me why you kept this secret." "My grandfather asked me not to tell you immediately." Logan's jaw was tight. "You'd just been through a traumatic experience. You were fragile. He thought you needed time to heal before dealing with legal issues and memories of your father. So you were protecting me?" Harper laughed bitterly. "Is that the story you're going with?" "It's the truth." "Then why not tell me once I was better? Why wait 3 weeks?" Harper's eyes burned. "Oh, wait. I know. Because once you realized this property was essential to your big deal, you couldn't risk me saying no. Harper, please. Everything makes sense now. The hot and cold behavior, the distance. You've been fighting with yourself this whole time, haven't you? Trying to figure out if you could go through with using me." "I wasn't using you." Logan's control finally cracked, voice rising to match hers. "I was trying to protect you, trying to honor my promise to my grandfather, while dealing with the fact that I was falling—" He stopped abruptly. "Falling for me." Harper's laugh was hollow. Don't you dare pretend this was real." "It was real." "It is real." Logan moved closer. "Harper, I swear to you my feelings have nothing to do with that property. I don't believe you." The words came out broken. "I trusted you. I let you in. I thought—" Her voice cracked. "I thought maybe you could be someone who actually wanted me. Not for what I could give you or how I could serve your purposes. Just me. I do want you. Just you. The property means nothing. The property means everything." Harper gestured wildly at the documents scattered around them. "It's your career-defining project, your company's future, and my father's legacy happens to sit right in the middle of it. You can't tell me that's a coincidence." "It is a coincidence. A terrible, complicated coincidence." Logan's hands clenched at his sides. "I didn't know about the property when you moved in. I found out 2 weeks later during routine title searches. And you kept it from me. To protect you. Or to protect your interests." Harper started gathering her things, shoving clothes into her suitcase with shaking hands. "I can't stay here. I can't look at you and not wonder what was real and what was strategy." "Harper, don't do this." Logan's voice was raw. "Please, just let me explain." "Explain what? That I was convenient? That keeping me close was good business?" Harper zipped her suitcase, calling Winston over. The old dog sensed the tension, moving slowly to her side. "I've spent my whole life being too much for people. Too messy, too emotional, too complicated. With you, I thought maybe I could just be enough. Just me. You are enough. You're everything. Stop." Harper held up her hand. tears streaming down her face. I can't hear this right now. I can't tell what's real and what's manipulation. I need to leave. Where will you go? That's not your concern anymore. Harper grabbed her suitcase and Winston's leash. I'll have a lawyer contact you about the property. We can negotiate terms through proper legal channels. I don't want the property, Harper, please. You've built your entire career on this project. Harper was shouting now. Don't insult me by pretending it doesn't matter. She headed for the door. Logan blocked her path. Move, she said coldly. Not until you understand. I love you. I'm in love with you. That has nothing to do with business or property or anything else. I love you. The words she'd dreamed of hearing. Now they felt like weapons. If you loved me, Harper said quietly, you would have told me the truth. You would have trusted me with something this important. But you didn't. So, whatever you think you feel, it's not love. It's just guilt. She pushed past him, Winston waddling behind. At the door she paused without turning back. I really thought you were different, she whispered. That was my mistake, not yours. Then she was gone. Logan stood in the sudden silence of his apartment, surrounded by scattered documents staring at the empty doorway. On the coffee table, forgotten in Harper's rush, sat her father's cactus. Small, resilient, abandoned. Logan sank to his knees, head in his hands, as the control he'd maintained for decades finally shattered. He'd lost her, and he had no idea how to get her back. Harper spent 3 nights in a budget motel with questionable Wi-Fi and a shower that only produced lukewarm water. Winston hated it. She hated it. But she couldn't go back to Logan's apartment, and she couldn't burden Mr. Collins while he was still recovering. She'd cried herself dry the first night. The second night, she'd been angry. By the third night, she was just empty. Her phone buzzed constantly, calls from Logan that she didn't answer, texts that she didn't read, voicemails that piled up unheard. What could he possibly say that would change anything? On the 4th morning, Harper woke to 17 missed calls, not from Logan but from Derek, Logan's best friend. Concerned, she called back. Derek, what's wrong? Is Logan okay? Physically? Yes. Mentally? The man's a disaster. Derek sounded exhausted. Harper, I know it's not my place, but you need to know what he did. I don't want to talk about Logan. Just listen, please. Derek took a breath. You know about the property, the development deal. Logan's been working on this project for 2 years. It's the biggest deal of his career. Would put Collins' development on the map internationally. I know all this, Harper said tightly. Yesterday was the final investor meeting. Logan was supposed to present the completed development plan and close the deal. We're talking $50 million, Harper. His company's future. Harper's chest tightened. And? He walked into that room and told them the deal was off, that he couldn't acquire all the necessary properties. The investors flew in from Dubai specifically for this meeting. They were furious. Harper sat down heavily on the bed. What? He refused the deal, walked away from everything. When I asked him why the hell he'd just torpedoed his own career, you know what he said? Derek's voice softened. He said, I can't build my success on destroying what matters to the woman I love. Tears pricked Harper's eyes. He said that? Word for word. Then he locked himself in his office and started drafting a letter to you. Something about signing over his portion of the family trust so you'd have full control over your father's property, no strings attached. Harper pressed her hand to her mouth, unable to speak. I'm not telling you this to manipulate you, Derek continued. I'm telling you because Logan would never tell you himself. He'd just let you think the worst of him if it meant protecting you. That's who he is. After they hung up, Harper sat staring at the wall, mind racing. Logan had given up everything, the career-defining project, the international recognition, the financial windfall, for her. A knock on her motel room door made her jump. Through the peephole, she saw Mr. Collins, looking frailer than ever but determined. Mr. Collins, you shouldn't be out of bed. Nonsense, we need to talk. He shuffled into the room, taking in the depressing accommodations with a disapproving frown. This won't do at all. It's temporary. I'm looking for an apartment. Harper, sit down. Mr. Collins's tone was gentle, but firm. There are things you need to know. Things I should have told you weeks ago. Harper sat on the edge of the bed, Winston immediately climbing into her lap, despite his arthritis. When Logan found out about your father's property, he came to me immediately, Mr. Collins began. He was conflicted. On one hand, he had this massive deal that could transform his company. On the other, he had you, a woman he was already starting to care for deeply. He had a funny way of showing it. Because I tied his hands. The old man's voice was heavy with regret. I told him not to mention the property to you, not yet. You were so broken when you arrived here, child. I'd watched your father go through hell losing your mother, and I couldn't bear to see you go through the same kind of pain. I thought if we waited until you were stronger, until you'd healed a bit, then we could approach the property issue carefully. Harper's throat tightened. But Logan obeyed me because I asked him to. Because he promised to protect you. And I convinced him that protecting you meant giving you time. Mr. Collins reached over, patting her hand. What I didn't account for was how quickly you two would fall for each other, how complicated things would become. He could have told me after, once I was better. By then he was terrified of losing you, terrified that the property would make you question his motives. Mr. Collins smiled sadly. The boy has his mother's abandonment issues. Makes him catastrophically bad at emotional honesty. Harper laughed wetly. That's putting it mildly. But here's what you need to understand. Logan didn't keep that secret to manipulate you. He kept it because I asked him to, and then because he was scared. Fear makes fools of us all, especially in matters of the heart. Mr. Collins, I watched that boy turn down $50 million yesterday without hesitation. Watched him sacrifice his company's future, his reputation, everything he's worked for. And you know what he said when I asked if he was sure. The old man's eyes were bright with unshed tears. He said, I promised to take care of her. That means putting her first. Always. Harper was crying now, tears streaming down her face. He loves you, Harper. Genuinely, completely, imperfectly. The kind of love that sacrifices everything and asks for nothing. Mr. Collins stood slowly, using his cane for support. The question is, can you forgive him for being human, for making mistakes while trying to do the right thing? After he left, Harper sat in that terrible motel room, hugging Winston, staring at nothing. Logan had given up everything. Not for show, not for manipulation, but because loving her meant more than his career, his success, his carefully constructed life. He'd chosen her, completely, irrevocably, without expecting anything in return. Harper grabbed her phone, finally opening Logan's texts. There were dozens, but the most recent, sent just an hour ago, was simple. I signed the paperwork. The property is entirely yours, no conditions. Do with it whatever you wish. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I'm sorry I hurt you. You deserved honesty and I failed you. I hope someday you can forgive me. You don't owe me anything. Not forgiveness, not understanding, nothing. I just needed you to know, loving you was never a mistake. It was the only thing I got right. L. Harper read it 3 times, each word carving deeper into her heart. Then she grabbed her keys. It was time to go home, and this time she was going to tell Logan Collins exactly how she felt. It was raining when Harper arrived at Logan's building. Of course it was, because apparently her life had decided to become a romantic comedy cliché. She was soaked by the time she reached his door, hair plastered to her face, clothes dripping on the expensive hallway carpet. Winston shook himself, spraying water everywhere. Harper raised her hand to knock, then paused. What was she going to say? She'd rehearsed a dozen speeches on the drive over, but now standing here all of them felt inadequate. Before she could decide, the door opened. Logan stood there, looking like he hadn't slept in days. His shirt was wrinkled, untucked. No tie. His hair was disheveled, like he'd been running his hands through it. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. He looked at her like she was a mirage. Harper. Hi. The word came out small. You're soaked. Logan's professional mask tried to slide into place, but his hand was trembling as he held the door open. Come in, you'll catch cold. Harper stepped inside, Winston waddling past her to immediately collapse on his favorite spot on the rug. The apartment looked different, messier. There were coffee mugs on the counter, 3 of them, all half full. Papers scattered across the dining table. The perfectly organized facade had cracked. I saw Mr. Collins, Harper said, still standing in the entryway, dripping. Logan's jaw tightened. I'm sorry he bothered you. He shouldn't have. He told me the truth about why you kept the property secret. about the promise you made to him. That doesn't excuse— Logan. Harper took a step closer. Let me talk, please. He nodded stiffly, every line of his body tense. Derek called me, told me what you did, that you walked away from the deal. Harper's voice shook. $50 million. Your company's future. Everything you've worked for. I couldn't— Logan started, then stopped. I couldn't build my success on destroying what mattered to you, your father's legacy. I'd already hurt you enough. You hurt me, Harper agreed, and Logan flinched. But not because of the property. You hurt me because you didn't trust me enough to tell me the truth. I was trying to protect you, I know. Harper moved closer until they were only a foot apart. I know you were. In your completely misguided, emotionally constipated way, you were trying to do the right thing. Logan's lips twitched, almost a smile. Emotionally constipated? Derek's words, not mine, though I can't say I disagree. Harper reached out, her hand hovering near his chest, but not quite touching. You made mistakes, you kept secrets, you let fear control you. I know, I'm sorry, I'm not finished. Harper's hand finally made contact, pressing flat against his heart. She could feel it racing under her palm. You also made me laugh, made me feel safe, made me believe I could be exactly who I am without apologizing for it. You taught me that I wasn't too much. I was just enough for the wrong people. Logan's hand came up to cover hers, pressing it tighter against his chest. Harper, when I walked out that door, I thought I'd been betrayed again, that every moment between us had been a lie. But it wasn't, was it? She looked up, meeting his storm-grey eyes. Those moments in the kitchen, the way you took care of me when I was sick, the coffee you made every morning even though you hate cinnamon, that was real. So real it terrified me. Logan's voice was rough. I've spent 30 years building walls, maintaining control. Then you walked in and demolished everything in 2 months. I didn't know how to handle it. So you pushed me away. I thought I was doing the noble thing, protecting you from my own selfishness. Logan's free hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheek. But Derek's right, I'm an idiot. A spectacular idiot, Harper agreed, leaning into his touch. I love you. The words tumbled out urgently, desperately. I'm in love with you. With your chaos and your laughter, and the way you put plants in every room. With how you take care of that ridiculous dog and name cacti and make everything brighter just by existing. I love you so much, it actually hurts. Harper's breath caught. Logan, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect anything. But I needed you to know. I chose you. Over my career, over my company, over everything. I will always choose you. You sacrificed everything. Harper whispered, tears mixing with rain on her face. Sacrificed? Harper, I got it backwards. The career, the success, the perfect life I built, those were the sacrifices. You're the prize I never thought I deserved. Harper let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. I mean every word. I know. Harper slid her other hand up to his neck, fingers threading into his hair. I love you too. So I've been in love with you since you stayed up all night in that uncomfortable chair because I was sick. Maybe even before that. Logan's eyes darkened. Harper? Shut up and kiss me already, Mr. Mandon. Logan didn't need to be told twice. He pulled her flush against him, one hand tangling in her wet hair, the other sliding around her waist. Then his lips found hers, and the world caught fire. The kiss was everything Harper had imagined and more. Desperate and tender, hungry and reverent. Logan kissed her like she was oxygen, and he'd been drowning. His lips moved against hers with an urgency that made her knees weak, and when she gasped, he deepened the kiss, tasting, claiming, worshipping. Harper's fingers tightened in his hair, pulling him impossibly closer. She felt his groan vibrate through both their bodies, felt the careful control he always maintained finally shatter completely. They broke apart, only to breathe, foreheads pressed together, both shaking. I love you, Logan breathed against her lips. Say it again, please. I love you. Harper punctuated each word with a kiss. I love you. I love you. Logan captured her mouth again, this time lifting her off her feet. She wrapped her legs around his waist instinctively, and he pressed her against the door, the kiss turning deeper, more intense. His teeth caught her bottom lip gently, and she made a sound she'd never made before. Pure want. Harper. Her name was a prayer, a promise, a plea. "Don't stop," she whispered. "Please don't stop. Never." Logan kissed her jaw, her neck, the sensitive spot behind her ear that made her gasp. "I'm never letting you go again." They kissed until they were both breathless, until Harper's lips were swollen and Logan's control was completely gone, until the only thing that existed was them and this moment and the love that had nearly destroyed them, but instead made them whole. Finally, Logan carried her to the couch, sitting down with her in his lap, unable to stop touching her. Her face, her hair, her shoulders, like he needed to confirm she was real. "Stay," he said, voice wrecked. "Not just tonight. Stay forever." Harper cupped his face between her hands, looking into his eyes. "Forever. I mean it. Move in properly. Not as a guest. As mine." "Yours," Harper agreed, kissing him again softly. "And you're mine. Completely. Irrevocably. Yours." They sat there wrapped around each other, trading kisses and whispered promises, while Winston snored contentedly on the rug and the rain pattered against the windows. Home, Harper thought. This was home. Not the apartment, not the city. Him. Logan was home. They spent hours on that couch, kissing until their lips were tender, talking until their voices were hoarse, learning each other in ways that had nothing to do with words. "I kept your note," Harper confessed, head tucked under Logan's chin. "The one you left by the coffee maker. Take today off. I pressed it in my sketchbook like some lovesick teenager." Logan's chest rumbled with laughter. "I have the stained dishcloth from the wine incident. It's in my sock drawer." "You kept a stained dishcloth, Mr. Perfect Organization?" "It reminded me of the first time I wanted to kiss you." His arms tightened around her. "I've been gone for you since that moment." Harper tilted her head back to look at him. "Take me to bed, Logan." His eyes darkened, pupils dilating. "Harper, I'm sure." She turned in his lap to straddle him, hands framing his face. "I want you. All of you. No more walls. No more fear. Just us." Logan stood in one fluid motion, Harper's legs wrapped around his waist. He carried her toward his bedroom, stopping every few steps to kiss her. Soft, deep, reverent kisses that made her heart stutter. In his room, he set her down gently beside the bed. His hands went to her wet shirt. "You're still soaked, let me—" Harper caught his hands, guiding them to help remove the damp fabric. Together, they undressed each other slowly, between kisses and whispered confessions. Logan's shirt came off, revealing the muscled torso she'd imagined touching so many times. Harper traced the lines of his abs, the curve of his shoulders, memorizing him with her fingertips. "You're beautiful," she breathed. "Harper." Her name was reverent on his lips as he unclasped her bra, sliding it off with shaking hands. "You're perfect, so perfect it scares me." "Don't be scared." She guided him down onto the bed, lying back against his pillows. "I'm yours. Completely." Logan covered her body with his, skin to skin, heat to heat. He kissed her slowly, her lips, her jaw, the column of her throat. "Are you sure? We can wait. I want you to be absolutely certain." "I've never been more certain of anything." Harper arched into him. "Make love to me, Logan." What followed was slow, tender, overwhelming. Logan worshipped every inch of her skin, learning what made her gasp, what made her moan. His hands mapped her curves with reverence, his lips following the path his fingers traced. "So beautiful," he murmured against her stomach. "How did I get this lucky?" When they finally joined, Logan held himself still, forehead pressed to hers. "Look at me. I need to see you." Harper opened her eyes, meeting his gaze. The intimacy of it, of being seen so completely, of seeing him equally vulnerable, made tears slip down her temples. "I love you," Logan whispered, beginning to move. "God, Harper, I love you so much." "Show me." Her hands clutched his shoulders, pulling him closer. "Show me." He did. With every gentle thrust, every whispered endearment, every kiss pressed to her skin. They moved together like they'd been made for this, finding a rhythm that built slowly, perfectly. "Logan!" Harper gasped as pleasure coiled tighter. "I've got you." His hand found hers, fingers lacing together. "Let go. I've got you." When Harper shattered, Logan followed moments later, her name a prayer on his lips. They clung to each other through the aftershocks, hearts racing in sync. Afterward, Logan pulled her close, tucking her against his chest. "Stay right here. Don't move." Not planning on it, Harper traced lazy patterns on his chest. "That was everything," Logan finished. "You're everything." They fell asleep, tangled together, finally whole. 2 weeks later, Logan's carefully rebuilt world faced a new challenge. His sister Victoria announced she was coming home. "Victoria?" Harper watched Logan's face go carefully blank at his phone. "That's wonderful. You never talk about her. When's the last time you saw her?" 5 years. She's been in Europe." Logan set his phone down with excessive care. "She's bringing someone." "A boyfriend?" "Our mother." The words dropped like stones. Harper knew the story. Logan's mother had left when he was 8, pursuing an art career that apparently required abandoning her children. Now she wanted back in. "You don't have to see her," Harper said quietly. "Victoria wants a family reunion." "How do I say no?" Logan's hands clenched. "How do I explain that the woman who walked out on us doesn't get to waltz back in because it's convenient?" When Victoria arrived 3 days later, she was a whirlwind of energy, tall, elegant, with Logan's eyes and an artist's soul that immediately connected with Harper. Their mother, Patricia, was smaller, older, nervously hovering. The dinner was excruciating. Logan was police, but distant, every word measured. Victoria tried too hard to play mediator. Patricia kept apologizing, tears streaming down her face. "I was young and selfish," Patricia said. "I thought I had to choose between art and family. I chose wrong. I've regretted it every day for 30 years. "Regret doesn't undo abandonment," Logan said, voice flat. After dinner, Logan retreated to his office. Harper found him there an hour later, staring at nothing. "Talk to me," she said softly. "I don't know what to say." Logan's voice cracked. "She left. She chose her career over us. And now she wants forgiveness. Like 30 years of absence can be erased with tears and apologies." Harper knelt in front of him, taking his hands. "You don't have to forgive her. You don't owe her anything." "Then why do I feel guilty for being angry?" "Because you have a good heart. Because despite everything, part of you still remembers being 8 years old and wondering why you weren't enough to make her stay." Logan's eyes filled with tears. "I built my whole life around control because I never wanted to feel that powerless again, that abandoned." "I know." Harper pressed her forehead to his. "But you're not alone in this. You don't have to carry it by yourself. Let me help. Let me be strong for you this time." Logan pulled her into his lap, burying his face in her neck. "I don't know how to do this. We'll figure it out together." Harper held him as his shoulders shook, as 30 years of pain finally found release. "You're allowed to hurt. You're allowed to be angry. And you're allowed to take all the time you need." Over the next week, Logan had several painful conversations with his mother. Harper stayed close, a steady presence. Slowly, Logan began to let go of the weight he'd carried. "I don't know if I can forgive her completely," he told Harper one night. "But maybe I can let go of the anger. Maybe that's enough." "That's more than enough," Harper assured him. "You're healing. That's what matters." Then Derek dropped his bomb. "I need to tell you something," he said to Harper over coffee while Logan was in a meeting. "I have feelings for you. I know it's terrible timing, and you're with Logan, but I couldn't keep pretending." Harper was gentle but firm. "Derek, I care about you as a friend, but Logan is it for me. He's everything." Derek nodded, accepting. "He's lucky. Take care of him, yeah?" "Always." The final surprise came from Mr. Collins. "I'm updating my will," the old man announced at Sunday dinner. "Logan inherits the company, but with a condition." Logan tensed. "What condition?" "You can only assume full control if you prove you've learned to balance work and life." Mr. Collins smiled at Harper. "Harper will serve as consultant of life balance for 6 months, with veto power over major business decisions." "Grandfather," Logan started. "It's final." The old man's tone was firm. "Harper, you'll make sure my grandson actually lives, not just works." Harper and Logan shared a look. "This is going to be interesting," Harper said. Logan squeezed her hand under the table. "With you, everything is interesting." Working side by side transformed them. Harper vetoed a merger that would have required year-round travel. Logan taught her business strategy. She taught him work-life balance. They argued, laughed, and built something beautiful together. One evening, reviewing contracts in bed, Logan set his laptop aside and pulled Harper close. "Thank you," he said simply. "For what?" "For barreling into my life, for refusing to let me hide, for loving me even when I'm an emotional disaster." Harper kissed him softly. "Thank you for being worth the chaos." They made love again, slower this time, savoring every touch, every kiss, every whispered promise. Afterward, Logan said, "Marry me." Harper's heart stopped. "What? Not now. Not yet. But someday. When you're ready. Marry me, let me spend the rest of my life making you happy." "Yes," Harper whispered. "Someday. Absolutely yes." 6 months after Harper had walked back into Logan's apartment soaking wet and ready to fight for them, Logan stood in front of a piece of land that had almost destroyed everything and was about to become the foundation of their future. Harper's father's property had been transformed into a memorial garden. Instead of commercial development, they'd created something meaningful, a community space filled with native plants, walking paths, and at the center, a stunning sculpture garden featuring hundreds of cacti, from tiny specimens to towering saguaros. "Are you going to tell me why we're here?" Harper asked, Winston waddling beside her. The old dog had defied all veterinary predictions and was still going strong, though his pace had slowed considerably. "You'll see." Logan guided her down the main path, hand warm in hers. The evening sun cast everything in golden light. They walked in comfortable silence until they reached the heart of the garden, a circular clearing surrounded by cacti of every variety, all thriving in their carefully prepared environment. "Logan, this is beautiful. Did you add new—" Harper stopped as she noticed something. Each cactus had a small plaque. She moved closer to read one. "For surviving the impossible." Another read, "For staying strong through the storms." A third, "For blooming despite the thorns." Harper's eyes filled with tears as she read plaque after plaque, each one a small tribute to resilience, survival, love. "They're messages," she breathed. "Love letters to cacti? Love letters to you." Logan's voice was rough with emotion. "Every one of these represents a moment from our story. The thorns we survived, the blooms we created, the growth we achieved together." Harper turned to find Logan on one knee, a small velvet box in his hands. "Harper Morgan, you crashed into my life like a force of nature. You took my carefully controlled world and turned it into beautiful chaos. You taught me that structure isn't safety. Love is. That perfection isn't the goal. Connection is. That letting go of control doesn't mean losing everything. It means gaining what actually matters." Tears streamed down Harper's face as Logan opened the box, revealing a stunning ring, a diamond surrounded by small emeralds that caught the light like dew on cacti spines. "You're messy and chaotic and emotional, and you're the best thing that ever happened to me. Every day with you is an adventure. Every moment is a gift. You make me want to be better, softer, more open. You make me want to live, not just exist." "Logan," Harper's voice broke, "I'm not perfect. I'm still too controlling sometimes. I still overthink everything. I'll probably always be a little too organized for your chaotic soul." Logan smiled through his own tears. "But I love you with everything I am. Will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life making you laugh, driving you crazy, and loving you exactly as you are?" "Yes." Harper dropped to her knees in front of him. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." Logan slid the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into a kiss that made the world fade away. They knelt there in the garden among the cacti, prickly, resilient, thriving against all odds, and kissed like they had all the time in the world, because they did. Winston barked approval, then immediately lay down for a nap. "I love you," Harper whispered against Logan's lips. "Thank you for being stubborn enough to break through my walls and patient enough to let me break through yours. Thank you for choosing me, every day, even when I'm impossible, especially when you're impossible." Harper laughed, examining her ring in the fading light. "It's perfect. You're perfect. I'm really not." "Perfect for me, then." She kissed him again. "Let's go home." 18 months later. "This is all your fault," Harper shouted, gripping Logan's hand so hard he was certain bones were breaking. "You and your stupid handsome face and your another contraction." The hospital delivery room was chaos. Harper, 9 months pregnant with twins, was in active labor and apparently determined to murder her husband before the babies arrived. "You're doing great, sweetheart," Logan said soothingly, wincing as another wave of pain made her squeeze his hand harder. "Don't you sweetheart me, this is your fault. I am never touching you again, do you hear me? Never." The nurses were trying very hard not to laugh. This wasn't the first time they'd heard such declarations. "You said that last contraction too," Logan reminded her gently. "And I meant it. I know, love, I know. I hate you so much right now. I love you too." Harper glared at him, then her expression softened as another contraction passed. "I'm sorry. I don't hate you. I just hate this. Why did we think having twins was a good idea? Because you said, and I quote, 'If we're doing this, might as well be efficient about it.' I was wrong. I'm never efficient about anything. Why did you listen to me?" Logan kissed her forehead. "Because I love you, even when you threaten to never touch me again. I might actually mean it this time. Oh God, here comes another one." 2 hours later, Logan held his newborn son in one arm and his newborn daughter in the other, tears streaming down his face. Harper, exhausted but radiant, watched from the hospital bed. "I take it back," she said softly. "You can definitely touch me again. Eventually. After I recover and sleep for a year." Logan laughed wetly. "They're perfect. You're perfect. How did we make something so perfect?" "We had a lot of practice," Harper teased, then held out her arms. "Give me my babies, you're hogging them." Logan carefully transferred their daughter to Harper's arms, settling their son beside her. The babies were tiny, perfect, a miracle of genetics that somehow combined the best of both of them. "We're parents," Harper whispered in awe. "We're parents," Logan echoed, settling carefully on the bed beside his family. "God help them. Between your chaos and my control issues, these kids don't stand a chance. They'll be perfectly imperfect, just like us." Logan kissed his wife's temple. "Just like us." 6 months later, the penthouse apartment that had once been a minimalist showcase now looked like an explosion at a toy factory. Colorful blocks littered the floor. A playmat dominated the living room. Baby swings, bottles, and tiny clothes were scattered across every surface. In the corner, Harper's original cactus, the one her father had given her, sat surrounded by a whole family of smaller cacti. They thrived in the chaos, just like everything else in the Collins household. Winston, now ancient but still stubborn, slept in a patch of afternoon sunlight, occasionally opening one eye to monitor the twins playing on their mat nearby. Harper stood in the kitchen, making bottles, humming off-key. Logan emerged from the nursery with their daughter, who'd been crying. "Someone needed her, Mama," he said, passing the baby over. Harper took their daughter, settling her against her chest. "Hello, my sweet girl. Were you giving Daddy trouble?" "Always," Logan said, but his smile was pure love. He wrapped his arms around both of them. "Our son is finally asleep. We have approximately 20 minutes before chaos resumes." 20 whole minutes? What shall we do with such luxury? Harper teased. Logan's answer was to kiss her, soft and deep and full of promise. When they broke apart, both were smiling. "I love you," Harper said. "Thank you for being brave enough to let me in. Thank you for being stubborn enough not to give up on me." Logan touched his forehead to hers. "Best decision I ever made." "What? Letting a chaotic artist and her geriatric dog move in?" "No. Falling in love with you. Everything else was just bonus chaos." Harper laughed, the sound filling their home. No longer perfect, no longer organized, but absolutely, completely filled with love. From his sunny spot, Winston snored contentedly. The cacti bloomed, and the Collins family, beautifully messy and perfectly imperfect, lived there happily ever after, one chaotic, love-filled day at a time. Leave your comment and share this story with someone special. It truly helps us keep bringing new stories to you. And if you want to follow every chapter of this emotional journey, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. Your support makes all the difference.